Well, the Detroit Tigers win streak ends at 6 after a loss on Thursday afternoon to the Angels. We talk about that and preview what should be a really fun weekend. All today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Friday, August 30th, 2024. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Welcome in. Welcome all. Everybody, happy Friday. Another week in the books. The Detroit Tigers wrapped up their series against the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim this week with a loss on Thursday afternoon by a score of 3-0. This was a frustrating game all around just because they were in it and they were constantly applying pressure and just couldn't get, well, I was going to say couldn't get over the hump there, but really they just couldn't get a run across the plate, period, right? They just couldn't bring a run home despite the fact that they were constantly applying pressure and getting runners on base throughout the entire game. But this is, at the end of the day, this is one game. This doesn't completely derail all of the excitement and momentum that has been building and that they have earned and built, right? I mean, this is a team that I came on here and said multiple times. I was like, this team could get really bad post-trade deadline, right? And in June was talking about how, I didn't know how many legitimate pieces of the future were on this team. And my tone has significantly changed in the month of August from where it was in June and post-deadline certainly as well. That is credit to the Detroit Tigers, right? And this one game does not just completely erase the 6 wins before it or the 13 wins in the last 2.5 weeks. Doesn't just throw all that out the window. So I want to make that clear, and I want to start off with that because it did kind of feel like a wind out of the sails moment. You don't score a single run against a bad team and a no-name pitcher. Like that can sting a little bit, but this weekend will be a big test for them. And we can talk about that more a little bit at the end of the show. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about my initial feelings right after I'm recording this immediately following the game ending, right? It's like, okay, that sucked, but I thought it was going to be a lot worse. I was on here talking very negatively about what the rest of this season could be. And they proved me wrong and made me eat my words. And I've made this significantly more exciting than I ever thought it was going to be. I would have called you nuts if you would have told me that they would have climbed their way back to 500, not only just period, but before September even. So still a lot of fun baseball being played. This weekend will be huge. We'll talk about that, like I said, at the end of the show. Let's focus on this ball game. 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position. That's kind of where this conversation starts and probably ends as well. 0 for 8 with RISP in this ball game. 10 runners left on base. They've been great with runners in scoring position for a decent amount of time now, right? For most of the month of August and even dating back to July. This was a team that in June was terrible with RISP and had turned that around and has been one of the bigger reasons as to why they've gotten more offensive production. Rocket science, right? Completely mind-blowing concept. When you get hits with runners on second and third, you score more runs. But they've been a lot better lately. And so this, again, if it's just a one-off thing, then put it behind you, move on, and get back on the horse there. But in this game, that was pretty much the reason they lost. The pitching while it wasn't spectacular from Montero, was good enough. The bullpen was great. They got runners on base constantly. Just couldn't hit them home. Had no clutch hitting. The biggest at bat of this ballgame, probably Spencer Torkelson's strikeout against Ben Joyce there. Ben Joyce has really turned it around and has been pretty darn good, especially the last couple of months has been really, really good. The dude throws 103, 104 miles an hour. He's got nasty stuff. The fireman, as they used to call him, and while when he was at Tennessee and was one of the biggest names in college baseball as well, was what, a second round draft pick, I want to say, comp round, second round, third round, something like that as a pure reliever, is really a testament to kind of the raw talent that he was perceived to have and is showing in his young career that he does have. So he's really the only legitimate super lockdown weapon the Angels have back there, and it's righty-righty. And we've documented Torkelson's struggles with velocity a lot, right? A lot. And so for him to be in that situation against a guy that can pump 103 is tough. And he didn't even really blow him away. He fouled off one 103 mile an hour fastball. It's even weird to just say out loud. Oh, yeah, he fouled off one 103 mile an hour fastball. Did foul off one, was a little bit late on it. It got, popped up out of play, but got him on sinkers low and in. And his sinker is still 93 to 95 with a ton of movement. And if you're sitting 103, that can really tie you in knots there. So, and I think Torkelson had a rough day at the office in general, goes 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts, did reach base once via hit by pitch, seemed to be okay there, thankfully. But I think one of the other reasons why that at-bat was frustrating is because Bally did Torkelson no favors and threw up his stats with the bases loaded in his career, and he's batting like under 100 in his career with the bases loaded, and does not have, obviously, a grand slam to his name. So just has not been good in that situation his whole career. You're trying to extend a win streak. You're trying to kind of pull yourself and will yourself back into that playoff conversation come September. And in the biggest AB of the game, he strikes out on, 5 pitches. Relatively uncompetitive at bat, all things considered. Let's talk pitching. So Cater Montero gets the start. I am going to put him in, what went wrong in this ball game, but I don't think that he was like the reason the team lost or that it was the worst performance I've ever seen. 5 innings, 5 hits, 3 earned runs, 3 walks, 5 strikeouts, and obviously the home run to Zach Neto against. His ERA is now 5.17 on the year. The reason why we're talking about him in this category and in what went wrong is because his command was brutal. The final line wasn't as bad as it could have been. The Angels aren't good, man. Like if he went up against a playoff caliber team or just any team that's, sizably better than the Los Angeles Angels are currently, I think that final line looks a lot worse. He could not stop hanging breaking balls. And he got a couple of them to get, called strikes at the very top of the zone that people took. And he also got a couple of not very good major league hitters to swing through them a couple of times. But he also got crushed on a couple of them. And the home run, obviously the hanging curveball was a big one there to Neto. He was an inning away from a quality start. Like, it really wasn't the worst outing in the world. But, on a pure, you don't look at the final box score or the final stat line. You just watch the execution of his pitches. He really struggled out there. That this was not great. And the command was really... He was really struggling with it the entire game. And I think that ended up being reflected as he got further and further into the outing. Only went 5 innings because the pitch count was unbelievably high. 3 walks in 5 innings is a very high number. All in all, could not really locate his pitches very well and was hanging a lot of breaking balls. And that is why he ended up with the line that he ended up with. However, the reason why they don't win this ball game ultimately falls on the offense. Again, this is not Montero's fault, quote unquote, that they lost this ball game. You're not going to win very many games scoring 0 runs. You got to score in order to win, and the Tigers couldn't do that in this one. Let's talk about a couple more players and moments in this ball game. Then we'll talk about the few things that went right, and then we'll talk stuff. Okay, we'll do all of that right after this. Got a telltale today about our friends over at Liquid IV. When you're taking in America's pastime, don't forget to hydrate with Liquid IV's Popsicle Firecracker flavor, a surefire summer hit because baseball and summer go together like Liquid IV and indulgent hydration. I take Liquid IV with me everywhere I go. I'm going hiking, right, with my family, going backpacking, whatever it is, just going out in town around Detroit for the day, right? Taking a day to walk around the city, going to a ball game, or the morning after a long night out. It doesn't matter. Liquid IV is always there and always helping me feel hydrated and refreshed because they have tons of vitamins, nutrients, and everything you need in water, much more than just regular water. Just tear, pour, and live more. One stick plus 16 ounces of water can hydrate you much better than the water alone. Powered by LIV Hydroscience, it gives you an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. As always, non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, and soy-free. So no more thirsty summers when you indulge in hydration with Liquid IV and get 20% off of your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code MLB at checkout. It's 20% off of your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code MLB at liquidiv.com. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2 of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. As always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We will, of course, be back on Monday recapping this weekend against the Boston Red Sox, talking about anything off the field as well. Going to be a really fun weekend downtown. We'll talk about that later. After you make us your first listen, make Paul Sullivan over at Locked On MLB your second listen. He is preparing everybody for the postseason that is just a month away here in the dog days of summer. Again, go check out Sully over at Locked On MLB, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So talking about what went wrong in this 3-0 shutout loss to the Los Angeles Angels, Dylan Dingler had a really rough day at the plate in this one. Unfortunately, goes 0 for 4, in this ball game. The thing that frustrated me the most about Dingler's approach was that he kept swinging first pitch. It might have been all 4 at bats. It was definitely 3 because I vividly remember 3 of them first pitch swinging, and they were all sinkers at the bottom of the zone. It's like the Angels knew he was going to first pitch swing. So they were like, you know what? Let's just throw him a bowling ball so that he gets on top of it and grounds out to shortstop. That did happen in his first or second AB, grounded into a double play. And all game was just hacking first pitch and was super aggressive. And when you're struggling like that, I understand just wanting to like get it off your back kind of thing, but man, you got to have a little bit of patience up there and kind of let the game come to you a little bit. And all in all, his offensive numbers since being called up are pretty brutal. 145 average and a 466 OPS. He should still get as much playing time as the team is comfortable the rest of the season, right? You're the rest of the season at the end of the day is still for development and development first. That is the top priority in this last month of the season here. So I hope he continues to get a lot of playing time. I'm sure he will. They only have 2 catchers on their 40-man roster. But has been a rough start offensively for his major league career. The saving grace is I think the defense has been pretty solid. So like all in all, I mean, this was just frustrating because the Tigers out-hit the Angels, right, in this ballgame. They out-hit them. And they had 2 walks on top of that. Had 10 base runners in this ballgame with 0 runs to show for it. You just literally could not do anything when a runner was on base. Kikanowicz's, that sinker he was offering was unbelievable. I was incredibly impressed with his sinker. It reminded me more of a changeup than anything else, but it went 95 to 97. I was really fascinated with it. I think that it really kept our hitters off balance and was, the biggest reason for his success. Anytime there was a runner on base, he would just throw 8 sinkers in a row and eventually would get the ground ball and get out of the inning. And that's really all there was to it. Tigers did not have an answer for that pitch, which again I thought was actually a really really good offering. I was pretty surprised. I was going to say pleasantly surprised, but it was against the opponent, so not pleasantly surprised. I was disappointingly surprised in how good that pitch was. Let's talk about what went right in this game. It was not without some rays of hope and positivity here. The bullpen was fantastic. Joey Wentz looked great. He had 2 perfect innings and 3 strikeouts. He did, however, take 2 comebackers in a row, like in 3 pitches, and back-to-back hitters. He took 2 comebackers that hit off his body. The first one in kind of like the wrist hand area, and the second one was a hard ground ball right at his shin. He came out of the game, but did walk off the field under his own power, thankfully. Just a tough day at the office in terms of what he put his body through, but a great day at the office in terms of his performance. I thought he looked great. I thought the curveball was really good, and that's something that we've been monitoring and trying to talk about a lot throughout the season. So, yeah, good for Joey Wentz for hopefully being healthy, walking off the field, most importantly. But I thought that was a really good pitching performance by Wentz as well. Will Vest, first appearance back since returning from the paternity list. Again, congratulations to him and his family. I think it's really smart to put him in a situation like this. It's a close game, but it's not exactly high leverage because you're not winning. You're not really close to winning. Kind of let him go out there, see if he can pitch a shutout inning and kind of get his sea legs back under him because you're going to need him going forward. And then Gunther with a perfect inning as well. I feel like he might be the guy that's sent down for Casey Mize's return, which we'll talk about here in segment 3. But I was impressed with what I saw from this. Was certainly more impressed this time than the first time he came up and kind of struggled with command a little bit. And offensively, again, the team was getting runners on base and was producing somewhat at the plate. Zach McKinstry had a fantastic game. And I just want to give Zach McKinstry all the credit in the world. I came on here and talked about how I assumed that he was going to be cut when they called up all the kids, and it was going to be a part of the Gio Urshela and Zach McKinstry were going to be the casualties on the roster. Talking about how I was confused how he continued to make it through, right, all of these DFA and waiver periods, right, and just stuck around and stayed on the team. He has been crushing the ball pretty much since then and had a 3-for-4 game in this one. I think he understands his role on the team. I think he embraces it. He's been hitting righties pretty well, which is all he will ever be asked to do, is just play solid defense wherever they put him and hit righties okay enough to bat like 7 through 9 in a lineup. That's it. And that's what he's provided this team lately, been hitting really well. So all the credit in the world to Zach McKinstry. He's probably going to be on this team through the rest of the year. And as he's playing right now, probably deserves to be on this team throughout the rest of the year as well. Matt Vierling as well with a huge hit at the time in that pinch hit opportunity was a massive moment in that ball game to keep the line moving and give, some hope that the Tigers may have come back still. It was a really big AB in the moment. So I want to give him credit, even though it ultimately did not result in a run. And then Kerry Carpenter 1 for 3, had a rough strikeout in his first AB, but still put together some really nice ABs and had a really good hit in this ball game as well. All right, let's talk stuff. We're going to talk about the weekend ahead and how much fun it could potentially be. Okay, we'll do all of that right after this. Got to talk to y'all today about our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports because unlike other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you watch the winnings roll in. Get in on all the daily action with your friends and become a part of the Prize Picks community today. You can now win up to 100 times your money with Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. That's turning $10 into $1,000. If you sign up today, you can get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus either. It's guaranteed. Go take a look. Go take a peek over at Prize Picks. It's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of stats to enjoy and look at. And especially with college football back, there's going to be even more fun to be had over at Prize Picks. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in as always. Let's talk stuff, okay? So Mize, we're assuming here, okay, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but like it's been heavily alluded that Casey Mize is going to get the start on Friday in Game 1 against the Boston Red Sox, and that's great. That's much needed innings. He's got to be able to showcase a slider that he's been talking very highly about since he's been in Toledo. Goodness, I can't talk today. And so we'll be looking at that. But I think most importantly, you're just getting solid innings that you desperately need here in the final month of the season. As I said earlier, I think Sean Gunther is probably the easy choice to look at of who to demote. But there's also now a possibility that Joey Wentz finds himself on the injured list after taking that very hard ground ball off the shin. So I don't know the status of that at the time of this recording. We will see, but those are kind of the two clubhouse leaders, no pun intended, in my eyes. So this weekend, this has the potential to be really fun against the Red Sox. The Tigers find themselves 2 games back at the time of this recording, but I'm recording this before the Red Sox play the Blue Jays on Thursday night, so it could be as little as a game and a half back going into the series this weekend from the Red Sox, that is, not from the wild card, obviously, which they find themselves still 5 games back of now. It's a really fun opportunity to beat a good team that is in the race with you, right? It's one thing to beat the White Sox. It's one thing to beat the Angels, right? To go and play against a team that is neck and neck with you and fighting tooth and nail to get into the postseason right next to you, to play them and to win would be really awesome. And what I think really kind of put some people over the edge and rejuvenate the fan base about what this team could look to do in September, right? This series means everything on the field in terms of, expectations come September and what people would want to see out of this team come September. They were going to lose eventually, right? That's baseball. They were going to lose eventually. As you can tell, I'm not like heartbroken about this loss. It's still a series win against a lesser opponent. The question is, how do they bounce back? If you let this loss just cause you to spiral and completely derail your season and you get swept this weekend or your play just completely falls off the rails, then the rest of September won't be nearly as exciting as we thought it could have been, 48 hours ago. But if you get back up, you win this series, and you set yourselves up really nicely at the end of the month here, you could have one of, if not just straight up the most fun September that this team has seen in 8 years. This weekend is a huge test for this baseball team and where they're at currently. It's a super important series, so let's have some fun, baby. Boston Red Sox don't have anybody listed at the time of this recording for a starting pitcher. I think they're going to face Tanner Houck at some point, but I'm not sure when. Again, it's all just TBD on the Red Sox side of things in terms of pitchers that will face. You can look that up yourself. As you're listening to this, I'm sure it will be public information. The Tigers are going with 3 starters, which has not happened in many, many series. Okay, it's been a while since the Tigers have been able to throw 3 starters out there and not have, some sort of bullpen game stuff over the course of a series. Casey Mize, again, we're assuming is going Friday, but I guess that could technically be wrong. Tarek Skubal goes on Saturday on 6 days of rest, and then Ty Madden will pitch the series finale on Sunday. Another cool thing about this weekend is the 1984 Detroit Tigers will be honored and celebrated all weekend. Either Friday or Saturday, they're giving out the Bless You Boys t-shirt if you go to the ball game. Just awesome, right? And obviously we have Petrie in the booth. We have Gibby in the booth, right? Like there's some of the members of that team that we see often, but there's still so many that we don't see every day and that aren't, did move to different places in the country post-retirement or post their Tiger stint and aren't just around the Detroit area all the time. And it's always just a beautiful thing for all of them to get back together again to celebrate the Tigers' most recent World Series championship that was now 40 years ago. And I think it's cool for the young players, right? This young team to be able to see 40 years removed the bonds and the brotherhood and the effect that team had on this city. I wasn't even close to being alive the last time the Tigers won the World Series. And yet that 84 team, I know the roster like the back of my hand, and is I have like the entire World Series, every single game of that World Series on a DVD, right? It means something to this town still, and to this city, and to this state still 40 years later, and those players are forever beloved here, and I think that matters. One of the players on that team is Chet Lemon. And it sounds like he is going to try to make it into town and be a part of everything. Jeff Seidel of the Freep wrote an article that I encourage everybody to go read about Chet Lemon, who has dealt with just a staggering and unbelievably unfortunate amount of health issues in his post-retirement life. And that is, if he can make it out and be with, his teammates again and go on the field again, I think that matters. And yeah, I think everybody should go read that article and just keeping Chet and the Lemon family in our thoughts and prayers. Wishing him all the best. Hopefully he's able to get out there this weekend, because I think that would mean a lot to not only a lot of people in the fan base, but a lot to the guys and to that 84 team as well. So bless you, boys. Let's celebrate the Tigers' most recent World Series championship and hopefully lay down some foundation, get some wins, and make this September one to remember. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We will, of course, be back on Monday recapping this weekend and talking about anything else that happens surrounding the Tigers organization. All right. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'll catch you all Monday, baby. Go Tigers.